Hey there. Welcome to another installment of Chuck's captivating chat, the December 30th, 2024 edition. I am still just astounded that the year's almost over. In fact, I'm just astounded to be as frigging old as I am, and it's actually going to be the year 2025. I was once young enough to think of 2025 as something that would be in a science fiction novel. Hey, Ward, thank you for joining me. Oh, thank you for your Merry Christmas greeting. Thank you. I apologize for not getting back to you, but I really appreciated that. You were so sweet. Yeah, sad about President Carter. Yeah, yeah, I did get to meet him. In fact, that was one of the things I was gonna talk about today. It's been my look at me, still getting ready here. I, um, I was doing my work for Dr. Whimsy. I'm also working on some art projects right now, some commissions. I go constantly, which is good because I'm doing things I love, but I stay very, very busy. But, I was trying to think, what am I gonna talk about for a show today? And a couple of examples, wonderful people have passed away, gave me topics right off the bat. And one of those, of course, is the wonderful President Jimmy Carter, one of my personal heroes. I always thought of him as the closest thing we've had in modern times to Eleanor Roosevelt, a true humanitarian. In every sense, I certainly don't need to list off all of the accomplishments, all the accolades. Everyone is aware of Habitats for Humanity is winning the Nobel Peace Prize. But it was back in 1991. I got to, shall we say, his universe and my universe for 60 seconds, got to touch. And it was at a book signing in Century City at, a bookstore that's long gone. I think it was Barnes and Noble, or was it Brentano's? I think it was Brentano's, Century City, here in Los Angeles. And he was doing a book signing. And I knew it was going to be a long line. It was something like 4 hours. I had to stand in line for that. And I still remember all of the Secret Service people. You couldn't mistake them, dressed in black, sunglasses on, earpiece, standing around looking very, very suspicious, watching all of us doing their jobs. So there were lots of Secret Service people around. It was a very long line. And I didn't mind. This was one of my heroes. This is somebody I still remember as a kid wanting him to win the presidency. And I still remember my mother waking me up for school, and she goes, "Chuck, guess what? Jimmy won. He won." And we had the television on in the kitchen. And I've never seen this footage again. I don't know if the videotape even exists of it anymore, or if it was something live that wasn't recorded. But I remember Jimmy Carter was in Plains, Georgia, and all the people were outside of his home. And I remember a big tear of joy, a big tear ran down his face. And I've never seen that video again, but I remember it so vividly. It was such a heartfelt moment. And of course, I remember as a kid how during the inaugural parade, he and Rosalind, wasn't Rosalind, it was Rosalind. I remember she emphasized, "That's how you say my name, Rosalind." They unannounced, they got out of their limo and started walking down the street, waving to the crowd. And of course, some could say that's an incredibly brave thing for a president to do, but I guess because it was done unannounced and it was a surprise gesture, that's how they were to do it. But I'm sure the Secret Service people were probably pooping their pants. It's like, "Oh my God, they're getting out of the limo. They're getting out of the bulletproof limo." But that's who they were. He was such a man of the people. He was the real deal. The real deal. And so anyway, I stood in line, finally got to the table with my book for him to sign. And all he was doing was oh, taking a Sharpie marker like this, and he just put J. Carter. That's all he would do, I guess, because he had so many books to sign. I kinda wish he had done a regular pen because Sharpie markers, whenever I show people that book now, it looks like his signature is printed on the page, and I have to say, "No, President Carter signed this. He held this book in his hands." But anyway, and I know this is probably the most obvious thing to say, and how many times President Carter heard this, but I just said, "Sir, I really admire you." And he looked up, and he looked right in my eyes, and he really listened to me from the heart, very intently. There's a big difference when somebody just really listens to you. And that's what he did. He he took that in like he was hearing it for the first time and not like the 400 millionth time. "Sir, I admire you." And I remember his blue eyes. They were very deep, crystal clear blue eyes, very intense. I looked into my eyes and said, "Thank you very much. That means a lot to me." And he really meant it. He spoke from the heart. And that always stayed with me. I like to think I'm a good judge of character. I know how to read people's energy, look into people's eyes. I can tell you he was the real deal. He was the real deal. And 100 years, that's quite something. If you recall about President Carter, there was a lot of pancreatic cancer in his family. I think like his brothers, his sisters, his mother, so much of his family died of pancreatic cancer. Jimmy Carter had a brain tumor, I think a malignant brain tumor at the age of 95, and he survived it at 95. And to make it to 100 was just such an achievement, when you factor in things like that. I think he was just such a life force, and he had such a sense of purpose. He had a reason for hanging on as long as he did. No, I don't wanna go into politics here because 'cause I've been chastised already, but he did say he did wanna stay alive long enough to vote for Kamala Harris, and something tells me maybe he didn't wanna stick around for this new administration. Like, he thought, "Okay, time to say bye-bye, time to go." I don't know. Forgive me, I don't wanna anger anyone, yeah, but, that occurred to me, and I saw that he's gonna get a full state funeral. They're gonna pull out the stops. He's gonna have viewings and, lie stay in the Capitol Rotunda, and and if there's anybody in the world who deserves a beautiful, beautiful, full, formal funeral, it's him, and I hope it's just everything it should be. Or that's something he was born during Calvin Coolidge's presidency. That is quite something. Yes, he would have been more in 1924. Yeah. Oh, well, that is pretty much standard procedure. I think when a president dies, it's considered standard to lower the flags half-mast for 30 days. But, well, hopefully they'll stay down for the month to honor him. Um, yeah, I could say more, but I said I'm gonna avoid politics here. Even talking about President Carter, I'm speaking from the heart of a really great man, and it was exciting for me to just touch greatness, a truly great, great person. Yeah, and, I was just looking at a comment here, I understand that, but it's somewhat, appropriate. I'll leave it at that. Well, yes, it's very appropriate for him. I agree. Um, but, there was something about Jimmy Carter, because I looked deep in his eyes. I was, like, a foot away from him, and I got to really look in his eyes, and, there was something almost angelic about him, and I don't mean that to sound corny or trite. I mean that very seriously. There was something angelic about him, and I've met so many celebrities in my lifetime living here in Los Angeles, and only 2 times have I ever really felt that I was in the presence of that, and one was Jimmy Carter, and the other was Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett has that quality, and I've talked to a lot of other people who have met her who have totally agreed with me, but that was someone I also looked deep into her eyes. In fact, I held hands with Carol Burnett. I've told that story how we cried together. She's incredible, incredible human being, and we're just so blessed that we've had people like Jimmy Carter, Carol Burnett, people almost like walking angels on this earth. Thank God for them. And I thought, well, what else am I going to talk about today? And speaking of celebrity encounters, people who have passed away, Linda Lavin. I was really saddened last night, and I saw the news on my phone that she had died. She was one of those people. Somebody said today on social media, they really thought she was gonna live forever. There are just certain people, it seems like they're always gonna be here. Frankly, Dick Van Dyke feels like that, and he's 99, he's but Linda Lavin had that quality. She was 87, and she was another one that I met. That's why I felt saddened, because it's one thing when you hear of a celebrity. Now, we all have celebrities that we really, really love, and we were saddened by their passing. Linda Lavin, it wasn't that I was not so much a fan of Alice. I liked the show. It was fun enough. I watched it as a kid growing up in the 70s, and it was nice entertainment, but I wasn't like a diehard Linda Lavin fan, but I met her. I met her in West Hollywood. I'm thinking this was about 20 years ago? I can't remember, because again, I'm at that age where time flies, like 20 years can feel like 6 months ago, but I met her. She was so warm, and she was so gracious, so sweet, and she spent several minutes talking to me, and I knew that she lived in Wilmington, North Carolina at the time. She was commuting out here. I think she eventually ended up moving back to New York, but she lived in Wilmington, North Carolina for about 17 years. And I mentioned to her that I was originally from Virginia. And she said, "Really, where?" And I said, "Oh, you never would have heard of this." And I mentioned my little tiny, tiny hometown in the southwestern part of Virginia. And she said, "I know that. I've been there. I have driven through there. I know that country very well." So that was a nice surprise. So it became more personal for me. So when I heard of her passing last night, I felt a stroke of sadness. I've told that on here. Yeah, she knew my hometown. She did. That, believe me, that shocked me. I think that shocked a number of my friends who still live in that hometown that I grew up in when I told them Linda Lavin had driven through there. But, okay, this is a tad off topic, but yet it is on topic. So I think I pretty much said what I wanted to say about Linda Lavin, and, God bless her. She was a I can attest to the fact she was a very sweet, gracious woman. And I'll say this also, I'm sure a lot you have seen on social media all the tributes, all the outpouring of love. And I find this to be true with a lot of television stars. Um, I grew up feeling that way, this lonely little isolated town. I didn't have a lot of friends. So television stars became my friends. And so it was very exciting to be a kid watching them on a little television screen. Later we had a color TV, but I can remember in my bedroom a little 12-inch black and white television set. And when I moved to California in the 80s, I started meeting these people. Many of them were still obviously living, but I mean, people like Don Knotts, Andy Griffith, Ava Gabor, Carol Burnett. My mother and I in the afternoons, used to watch the talk shows like Merv Griffin and Dinah Shore, and there'd always be these people like, oh, Buddy Hackett, Phyllis Diller, Don Rickles, people like that. They all felt like family. because you would see these people day to day, literally in your home. So when I would meet them, it was like I felt like Alice through the looking glass. I was on one side of the TV screen, and now I was on the other side of the TV screen, actually meeting them, actually talking to them, shaking hands with them, hugging them. Yes, Ward, I met Phyllis Diller once. She was very nice. Um, Phyllis Diller was very well, this is true of a lot of comedians I've met. They have their personas, their performing personas. Little Phyllis Diller, we all know that, the wild hair and the gloves and the and the cigarette holder. No, real life, very normal, very low key, nicely dressed, her hair done, very normal. And that's what I found with a lot of comedians. Will Ferrell comes to mind. Will Ferrell has a very outrageous personality in person, very soft spoken. And I can tell you this, he has beautiful manners. He is somebody very old fashioned manners, like, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, those kind of manners. That's Will Ferrell, and you wouldn't expect that of him. Yes, I knew that about Diller being a very talented classical pianist. She also had a beautiful singing voice, which is something a lot of people do not know about. Um, she, there were a number of women who replaced Carol Channing in Hello, Dolly on Broadway. Like, there was a whole succession. I think Ginger Rogers replaced her for a time, Betty Grable, uh, Pearl Bailey. They did an all black cast, and I've seen clips of Pearl Bailey. Wow, fabulous in the role. But anyway, there is a clip on YouTube of Phyllis Diller singing, what is it, Before the Parade Passes By, from Hello, Dolly. Her voice was excellent. She had a beautiful Broadway belting voice. I thought, oh, Phyllis, you should have done more musicals. You should have had a Broadway musical written just for you. But she was very musical. Yeah, the late Sid Caesar, humble off stage. I never met him, but I did see him and Imogene Coca I think this was the very early 90s. They were both well into their 80s at the time, and they did a two-person play at the in Westwood at what is now known as the Geffen Theater. And it was just the two of them doing their most famous routines from your shows. And I can tell you, they were in their 80s. They had impeccable timing. They had energy. They were spot on perfect. And that was such a joy. Now, with Sid Caesar, that may very well be true. He was humble in person. Now, I have read accounts, when he did his show in the 1950s, your show shows, he was actually quite a son of a bitch to work for. The Dick Van Dyke Show and Alan Brady. Alan Brady allegedly was based on Sid Caesar. I think Sid Caesar, and I think there was maybe one other big variety show star of the 1950s, because Carl Reiner used to write for your show shows. Your show shows had people like Mel Brooks, they had Woody Allen, Carl Reiner, Neil Simon. I mean, all these giants were the writers, and I think this is where the stories came from of just how difficult Sid Caesar was. If you watch the Dick Van Dyke Show and watch Alan Brady, of course, is a satirical character, exaggerated, but apparently there's a lot of truth in that, who Sid Caesar really was. Um, yeah, no, I'm not surprised about Imogene Coca being shy off stage. I'm not surprised. When I saw her on stage with Sid Caesar, she seemed very sweet and gentle, but such a comedic genius. Hey, Wendy, thank you for joining. Hi. Oh, I like all your little symbols down there. It's kind of like the hat you designed for Whimsy. That's nice. Um, but Imogen Coca, I think it seems like I remember now she was like 85 when she did that show. And she was so flexible and the way she moved and her pacing and her mind was so sharp. She had not lost a thing. And, a little side note about Imogene Coca is that, she was in an auto accident in the early 70s, and she was thrown toward the windshield, and her eye went the rear view mirror went right into her eye. She lost one of her eyes, and I understand from that point on, she was terrified of riding in cars ever again. Yeah, got a whole garden there. I completely forgot what I was gonna say as a side note to Linda Lavin. Now maybe it'll come back to me. I should have written it down. I got off track here. What was it? I said there was something off track, another story to tell here, but it'll come back to me. Um, but I was just mentioning how these people truly are, like family. I will admit I came out to LA with stars in my eyes. One of these naive people thinks, well, in a year, I'm going to be in the movies and I'm going to have my house in the Hollywood Hills. It doesn't quite work that way. For about 99.9% of us have come out to LA. But that old saying about the glass being half full or half empty. Well, if I choose to look at my glass as half full, I've had so many beautiful encounters with celebrities over the years. One on one, there are a handful of people, small handful I've actually become friends with, and it's out of respect to privacy. I won't name them here because I have to respect their confidentiality. But I did mention I was friends with Evelyn Keyes. I actually got to know a great old movie star from the 40s. Yes, and Ward, you were saying that whole I was thinking the very same thing, and I was just about to mention it. You were reading my mind about Eunice Higgins. Eunice Higgins, I was just telling someone the other night about this, about how you remember the Gong Show? Eunice was going to go to Hollywood to appear on the Gong Show. And of course, those sketches. Eunice and Mama, always ended up in a big, big screaming match fight. And hold on, I just got to decline a call here. I tell people not to call me between 5 and 6, and they call me anyway. Anyway, Eunice is screaming at Mama and Ed, and they're of course telling her about how you're not going to amount to anything, you're nothing. And she said, "Well, I'm going to go to Hollywood. I'm going to get on the Gong Show, and I'm going to be discovered, and I'm going to be a big movie star. And I'm going, sorry about that. I'm going to be a big movie star." And I'm going to have a mansion up in the Hollywood Hills, and I'm going to have a swimming pool, and I'm going to have pool parties with the movie stars on Sunday, and you're not invited. That has always made me laugh so hard. It's like Christmas time. There's a sketch that makes the rounds of YouTube and social media, and I've shared it. It's the wonderful Christmas sketch. Ed, Eunice, and Mama, and Alan Alda played one of the brothers of Eunice. I lost count of how many guest stars on that show played either a brother or a sister to Eunice. I think they had Roddy McDowell, Alan Alda, there was Tommy Smothers, Betty White. I was a damn big family. Uh, but it's Christmas, and Eunice has this tacky Christmas apron on and these Christmas tree ornament earrings. And at one point, "Ed, do you have your camera ready? Well, then get over here and take the picture of the look of joy on my face." And she's opening the box and doing a great big fake smile. That always gets me. And I've said this, Eunice was basically my mother. Honest to God, that was my mother. My mother had the same hairdo. How many women had that hairdo in the 70s? My mother had that hairdo. She had that same Southern accent. She had that same attitude. The whole world is pooping on my head, that type of thing. So, yes, it wasn't easy growing up with that. Love my mother, but any of us who have had complex relationships with our parents understand you love them, but yet it's a lot to work through. And, those Eunice skits, it was just uncanny. It was like Carol Burnett had a direct chord, a line to my mother. To my mother, it's like she literally understood the psyche of my mother and played her. It's enough that I can watch those skits on YouTube or Amazon or wherever they are. By the way, there's a 24-hour Carol Burnett show channel on Amazon Prime. Just so you know about it, anytime you need a fix. And every time I watch those skits, it's almost like watching a home movie of my mother. It's like, I need to remember my mother. I just watch those. And I told my sister, my big sister about it, and my sister, who hadn't watched much Carol Burnett, said, "Oh, I don't know if I ever saw that. Oh, come on." I said, just watch a skit. Watch one." And I suggested one to her, and my sister called me back and said, "Oh my god, that's mom." I mean, she was spooked. It was literally my mother, Eunice, and I've told that story. I've met Carol Burnett 3 times in my life, and every time I've always brought it up. "You played my mother. You played my mother." And one of the times I said to Carol Burnett, I said, because Carol Burnett understood her own character quite well, and to her, Eunice was not a funny character. Eunice was a tragic character. Carol Burnett said that they actually did not do those skits on the show for deliberate laughs. They actually played it straight, but the humor, the comedy was built into the writing and the circumstances. But that's where they came from. They were playing it straight. And I understand that well. I've told the story how Dee Wallace, an acting teacher I worked with, always said, "You play comedy exactly the way you play drama. Exactly the same truth, the same circumstances, everything, except the stakes are just higher. You're heightening the stakes." And of course, some timing and so forth. But she said, "You play it with that same truth." That's why my teachers loved Lucille Ball so much. She said Lucy was the master at doing that, playing comedy for all the truth that was within it, with all the dimensions. And that was where Carol Burnett came from with those skits. They were very sacred to her. She even said to Harvey Korman, Vicki Lawrence, Tim Conway, she said, these sketches, I don't want to play around with these too much. We need to treat these characters with a certain amount of reverence. She was quite serious about that. So Carol Burnett usually would speak up if she didn't agree with something the writers wanted to do, or if there was like cheap, obvious laughs, anything like that. No, she wanted that realism in there. She was right. That's why those sketches resonate. I read somewhere that a lot of the writers of those skits were people who actually grew up in their own dysfunctional families, and almost every one of them had big issues with their mother. Whoa. So what I said to Carol Burnett, because when I said, my mother was the real life Eunice, and Carol Burnett said, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." She meant it like, because she knew Eunice was very tragic. And I said, "No, no, it's okay. It's okay. Yes, I get it. I my mother was a very tragic lady, very sad, never had her dreams come true, probably the angriest human being I ever knew in my life." But, when you're growing up as a kid, you're trying to process all of that, and you don't have the emotional psychological tools that we have as an adult. This is when I was a kid. So it's only decades after the fact and many years after my mother's death, I'm starting to come to terms with a lot of things. But I said to Carol Burnett, "No, it's okay. It's okay." Because as a child, and I've thought about this, you helped me to laugh at something very sad and very tragic. You helped me to find humor in that. And if anything, you helped me, even at that age, to better empathize with my mother, go inside her psyche a little bit. And I did that through you playing Eunice. And I know that Carol Burnett was very touched by that. And I think that was one of the times she held my hands and cried. She's lovely. I'm just looking at some comments here. Oh, yeah, sounds like the writers, for Everyone Loves Raymond with Marie. Now, I haven't heard that story. I didn't know if that was is that the case? The writers had their own mother issues, and they just put it all into Marie? I'm not surprised by that. I was having this discussion just recently with a friend, because she's a writer, I like to write myself, and I said, "You know something? I have a feeling the majority of screenplays, teleplays, sitcom scripts, the reason they're so good is because they are based on things that really did happen, and people are just taking these experiences and doing something cathartic with them and turning it into gold, taking crap and turning it into gold. Doris Roberts was brilliant. I met her once. Don't mean to keep making this a name dropping thing. Uh, but this was a play, Santa Monica Boulevard here in Hollywood. And we have these things called 99 seat theaters. They're just little venues where people can put on experimental productions, do theater. Theater is very expensive to do, but this is a little more cost effective and it allows actors to put on their own shows and writers test out their things. And it was a little play with the son of Paula Prentice and Richard Benjamin. And by the way, at the time I saw that, he was the spitting image of his father. It was like his father had been remade. It's like Paula Prentice didn't have anything to do with it. But anyway, Doris Roberts was in the audience, and they had food in the lobby, afterwards refreshments and cake and cheese and crackers and stuff. And Doris Roberts, I heard this voice down beneath me going, and she was turning to me and going, "Wow, look at the spread." Tiny, tiny, tiny little woman. I'm 6'2", and I don't know what her height was, but I'm gonna guess it was like 4'10", 4'11". She was a tiny, tiny little thing, but she was so sweet in the way she said, "Wow, look at all these eats. Look at the spread." So that's my memory of Doris Roberts. Um, but yeah, a lot of experiences get written into scripts. I was thinking of Sex and the City, Sarah Jessica Parker's iconic sitcom. And it was one of the most famous episodes they ever did. It was the last season. And it was a story arc where Carrie had a new boyfriend for a while. And then one morning she wakes up and she sees a post-it note on her computer screen. And it's him saying, "I've decided it doesn't work out between us or something. I'm breaking up with you." And so it cuts away to the next scene, Carrie and her three girlfriends, and they're going, "He broke up with you on a post-it note?" You know? Well, it turns out that one of the writers for the show, that literally happened to her. A boyfriend broke up her with her with a Post-it note, and I think she had harbored that bitter memory for years and just waited for the perfect opportunity to use it. And I guess in a good-natured way, extract her revenge, hoping that former boyfriend was seeing that episode and recognizing himself. Um, I had this experience. This is one where I'm going to not name names because I want to protect confidentiality of friends. But I had a friend, late 90s, early 2000s. At the time, he was a writer on a television show, just in his 20s. And he had just gotten his dream job writing for this series. He was part of a staff of writers. And he later went on to to be the head writer and producer for a television show, a network television show. It didn't last very long. It only lasted a couple of seasons, but he named one of the characters after me. It was like a little inside joke, named one of the characters after me, and then incorporated some of our actual real life friendship into it and used some lines. But I know he did that very good naturedly. He did that as a very sweet little homage to me. Like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Look, Chuck, I found a way to put you into my TV show. I wish he could have given me a role on the show. But anyway, that happened to me, and that was almost surrealistic. I don't know too many people have had that happen to them. And Ward, what you said, Lucy said, you've got to believe what's happening. Well, you know what Lucy actually said? Um, there was an interview. Well, it wasn't an interview. It was on stage at the Museum of Television and Radio in New York City in the early 80s. And she was taking questions from the audience. And someone asked her about that. And Lucy said, well, my technique is I'm a child believer, meaning she approached everything like a little girl who just believed everything, like a little girl playing make believe, playing house or whatever. She said, I was a child believer. And no matter how big the scenario of a scene was, how outrageous, how unbelievable it might have been, she said, I found a way to believe that with all of my heart and soul and play it for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I Love Lucy resonates 70 years later. There's so much truth. It's like universal truth. Lucy, universal truth. Yes, the plots were outrageous and they could get a little comic bookish, but Lucy, you watch her, she was firmly rooted in reality and truth. And I've been watching her since I was 2 years old, loving her since I was 2 years old, and I know that because my big sister told me. She even saved a drawing I did of Lucy when she was 3 years old. Little stick woman with orange crayon for curly-Q hair. Her big red mouth. I remember that drawing so well. I wish my sister hadn't lost it. I have begged her to search for it, and she can't find it. And I know it's packed away in a box somewhere in the archives, which is a polite way of saying the big, big mess in her basement in her attic. In fact, her 3 daughters got a big laugh when I called it the archives. But, I've always loved her, and, I guess what I'm saying is, the thing about a show like I Love Lucy, it has probably the best demographics any show ever had. I can't think of any show that plays to a 2-year-old child and to an 80-year-old person and a middle-aged person. It'll play to someone who's a Harvard graduate. It'll play to somebody who didn't even go to school. It's just every single demographic. You go right down the line. I Love Lucy plays to everything. In fact, it's a fact. Queen Elizabeth was a fan of I Love Lucy. Albert Einstein was a fan. There's a movie about Maria Callas on Netflix now with Angelina Jolie. I know a lot of people are very mixed about how they feel about that. And this wasn't in the movie, but I had seen this on a documentary somewhere that when Maria Callas was in New York in the late 1960s, teaching her masterclass, which of course, there was very, very famous play called Masterclass. I'm sure I saw it on stage myself. I saw it with Faye Dunaway here in Hollywood. In fact, it was so good I went to see it twice. But anyway, in the documentary, they mentioned that Maria Callas she was very strict about ending her classes promptly at 3:30 p.m. So she had time to get home to watch I Love Lucy. Maria Callas was a huge Lucille Ball fan. No, that I was surprised by that, really surprised. And I'm just looking at some sweet comments here. Um, oh, did I get some immortality, getting the show character named after me? Well, if the show had lasted beyond what was it, 8 episodes or something? Maybe it didn't last very long, unfortunately. Charlie, what's the call-in number? I'm not sure if I know what you mean about a call-in number. Um, I mean, I don't have a phone number you can call in. You can just comment here if you want. Um, but but Goddess Fell, thank you. You're enjoying my videos. Thank you so much. I've said this so many times on this show. I have got to get my ass in gear and make more videos. It's been a very busy time for me, very creative, but very, very, very busy where I just go from day to night. And this is the best I've been able to do is just go in here once a week and do this show. And I'm grateful to do this. I have a good time doing it, but I need to make some more videos. I have pages of notes for topics, because that is my passion, old Hollywood. And, I did work at one time on a book on I Love Lucy. So I've got lots and lots of stuff up here in my head. Got to do something with it. Oh yeah, no, well, actually, Ward, it does exist. I have the DVD set of it. But it wasn't very successful, So I don't think I got any immortality out of it. But for my friend, I was happy for him, and it was a sweet gesture. Get a sweet gesture. What's that, Charlie? Charlie, get a Google Voice number. It's free. Post it on your screen. Have idiots call in. I don't know. I don't know about that. Oh, how did my Christmas party go? The carrot cake. Yes, the carrot cake was a hit. It always is. It always is. And believe me, I say that with modesty because I'm one of those people. I'm the person who burns water. Uh, you know, I I am so challenged in the kitchen. I keep vowing one day I'm going to take some cooking classes or something and get up to speed. My mother never taught me to cook, and I used to beg her to do that. My sister too. I didn't get that in my childhood, and I've talked with people who do cook, and they almost always tell me, "Well, my mother would let me watch, or she would teach me little things here and there." And I started, and I was young. I didn't have that, so I've always been challenged. I can make a few things, um, but for some reason, I bake better than I cook. And my mother had this wonderful carrot cake recipe that goes back ages, goes back decades. And I don't know how exclusive it is because I've compared it to other carrot cake recipes, and there are a lot of similarities, but this cake is so good. And, before I made this carrot cake, I had tried years before to bake a cake for someone for a birthday. It was a disaster. Remember on I Love Lucy, Fred Mertz's juicy 7-layer chocolate cake, and he took the lid off, and it was like this flat pancake because he had put all the frosting in with the batter or something, and it did not rise. I tried to bake a birthday cake. I mean, the best intentions. I don't know what I did wrong. I followed everything to the letter. It came out flat as a pancake. It didn't rise, and it was revolting. So I had it in my head. I just can't bake. I can't cook. I don't know why, because I followed the damn recipe. So anyway, it was after my mother died, and this was she died in 2003, so it was like a year or two later. I was with my family. My sister's in Colorado, her kids, and my dad moved there to be near her. So I went to Colorado to be with my family for Christmas, and everybody was saying, "Oh, I wish we had mom's carrot cake." And I had the recipe on my phone. I had a photograph of her handwritten recipe, and people were encouraging me to try it. And I said, I'm the kiss of death in kitchen. I But I did it. I followed the instructions, everything to the letter, did it all by myself. I did. I had no help. Lot of work making that carrot cake, grating all those carrots and chopping the walnuts and everything. I mean, big, big production. 3 layer cake, homemade frosting. So I made it. Came out of the oven okay. It actually rose. Let the layers cool, and went and made my frosting in the mixer. And once they were cool, I frosted the cake and everything, and then I had it later that night. And I brought it out after dinner, and I was like, "Is this gonna be safe to eat?" Uh, cut everybody a slice. I took a bite. I was stunned. It was good. It tasted exactly like the way my mother made it. Now, I know you out there are going, "Well, of course, you followed the damn recipe." But like I said, I followed a recipe once for a cake, and it didn't come out. So I was shocked. I thought I was never gonna taste that cake again. I thought it went to the grave with my mother. It was so damn good. And now it's become my thing at least once a year, usually around Christmas time or something. I will make the carrot cake. It's my specialty. I'm thinking of Lisa Douglas on, Green Acres. Remember the only thing she knew how to cook were hotcakes? It's like me, I make carrot cake. That's my thing. But yes, thank you for asking. It was a big, big hit. The carrot cake came out very, very nicely. Now, I destroyed my kitchen, and I think I said that last week. My kitchen looked like Hiroshima, and I tried. I really tried to be careful. But when you've got all that powdered sugar and all that flour and egg yolks and stuff. Oh, maybe if I were more skilled in the kitchen, maybe, but I made such a horrendous mess, and because I was entertaining that night, I didn't have time to clean my kitchen, so you can imagine the next day. I practically needed a blowtorch and a chisel. Yes, I'm giving away all my secrets here. Let's see where. Don't feel too bad. Once my fried chicken attempt wound up having all the batter getting scorched on the bottom and the whole thing, including the pan, having to be thrown out. I'm only laughing because that sounds so much like something that I would do. Oh, God. Someone was telling me, I don't know if I think I didn't get to tell this at Thanksgiving, because we got off track as we do, and that's part of the fun of this show. It's like a journey, never knowing what pathway it's going to take. But I always have stories prepared in case I am the deer in the headlights and don't know what to talk about. And I remembered back a friend in college. He was telling me there were several who did not go home for Thanksgiving. They stayed behind in the dorms. So it's kind of like that movie came out a year ago with Paul Giamatti. What was it? The Holdovers, The Leftovers. It was about people who stayed behind during Christmas break at college, and this wonderful, wonderful actress. I'm blanking on her name. She got the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Oh, she's incredible, incredible in the movie. But anyway, it was one of those situations where some college kids staying behind, didn't have anybody spend Thanksgiving with, decided to make their own Thanksgiving. And nobody had ever prepared a turkey in their life. Went out and bought a big frozen turkey, put it in the oven. The only thing is, being college kids, let's just say they were, drinking a lot of alcohol. Somebody put the turkey in the oven on broil at 500 degrees. And I don't know how long they left it in the oven, but my friend said when they took it out, it was it was charred black, burnt to a crisp on the outside, and the inside of the turkey was still frozen solid. I don't know what they did. They probably had to go to Burger King or McDonald's for Thanksgiving. I thought that was a funny story. Oh god. Well, I once knew someone who got to hospital when attempting to fry a turkey. Yes, I know just what you're talking about. There was this big fad, back in the late '90s, and I know this because I went to a Thanksgiving at someone's house where they had one of those fryers. Well, it was some contraption. You had to put it outside, and with good reason. You fried the turkey in peanut oil, and it was supposed to be very, very fast, like 2 hour. I don't remember. Don't quote me on this, but it was something ridiculous, like 2 hours or something, and the turkey was supposed to be perfectly cooked. And I will admit, when the turkey was served, it was delicious. It was very moist, having been deep fried in peanut oil. But I was a little worried, only 2 hours or so. I thought, "I don't want botulism for Thanksgiving," but it came out. But I later heard there were all these stories of those things exploding and people burning their houses down or blowing up their houses, literally blowing up their houses like bombs because of those things. So I don't think too many people fry their turkeys anymore. Uh, but yes, you know what? It was a delicious turkey. I've got to admit that. Um, there was a movie many years ago called The Accidental Tourist. I'm just thinking of this. Gina Davis won the Best Supporting Actress Oscar for it, and it had William Hurt. But there was a scene in the movie. I'm pretty sure it was Thanksgiving, and mother, the matriarch of the family, announced that she had found this new recipe for preparing turkey, and she said, "You cook the turkey at 147 degrees for 12 hours." 147 degrees. That's like that's almost like just a step above a refrigerator. So here's the turkey on the table, and it looks nice, and all the guests are like staring at it, and nobody wants to eat it. Nobody wants to cut it. Everybody is scared to death of this deadly turkey that's been out for 12 hours in an oven for only 147 degrees. Oh my god, I just remembered that scene, but that's almost the way I felt about that deep fried turkey, whether to eat it or not. Oh boy, you just brought back a memory for me. Uh, that's like the Monty Python movie. Was it The Meaning of Life? It was the one where this this hostess, she was having a dinner party, and Mr. Death showed up. Remember Mr. Death? What was his actual name? He had the black hood and the sieve. Like out of an Ingmar Bergman movie. It was Mr. Death showing up to collect everyone, and she's going, "Well, what are you doing here? This is my dinner party." And Mr. Death tells her, "Well, your tuna casserole has botulism. You didn't cook it long enough." And she goes, "Oh dear, I'm so embarrassed." And I remember I saw that in the theater, that "I'm so embarrassed" got the biggest laugh as Mr. Death started to, "Come on, everybody, follow me. We're going now." Oh gosh, it's a miracle more people don't have that happen on Thanksgiving, because you think about all the things that can go wrong, not cooking a turkey properly, salmonella and things like that. Not such a cheerful topic, but that was Thanksgiving. And yes, Christmas, I just had a small little gathering, and I served my carrot cake. Um, Christmas this year was very low key, but last week I did a rare thing. My show was 5 minutes. And I did that mostly, honest to God, I did this mostly out of respect to all of you out there, because I've got several of you who are so loyal to me and come here every week. There was a temptation, because my show with Whimsy was canceled for the next day because it was Christmas Eve. And I thought, oh, is it going to hurt not to do one show? And I thought, no, no, no. I have a responsibility here. Um, Maybe I'm not putting up my videos, but I am consistent with doing this every Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I didn't want to let you down without at least coming on for a few minutes to explain why it was going to be a short show. And it wasn't intended to be a short show. Woo, woo, say that 10 times. Short show, short show. I did not know that carrot cake, that carrot cake took me almost 5 hours to make. And my kitchen was destroyed, and I hadn't even run my vacuum cleaner yet. And that's the great thing about doing something like this, where I can just aim the camera this way toward my couch. You don't have to see the rest of my home and see the multitude of sins when it's not necessarily clean. And this was one of those days I would have been horrified. Hi, Joyce, my dear friend. Thank you for joining. Um, and yeah, you can do clever things with camera angles. Thank goodness. Um, and because you know, I work as a freelance artist, and I end up using my what was that? It sounds like you had to grow the carrots for its 5 hours. No, but grating carrots is pretty close to it when you gotta because I think I mentioned this last week, my little food processor chose to die, and I had to run, and I mean run to the grocery store and get a grater because I had no idea where mine was. I'm sure I own one somewhere. I had to go out and buy a grater, and I had to cut these carrots, and I had to do that, and my fingers were actually getting numb. It was taking so long to grate those carrots into little itty bitty pieces so I could bake that cake. So that was part of it. But I was just saying I work as a professional freelance artist, and in this little apartment, I end up using my I have a designated area to work, my kitchen table, but I end up liking to sit here in the living room and oh, let's let Sasha make an appearance. Sasha lies beside me, and like to just be here and be comfortable with a lap desk. Sorry, Sasha, I shouldn't have waken you up. And I'm like, I basically paint and draw the same way I do when I cook in the kitchen. These people reach for spice here, spice there. I'm reaching for a tube of this paint, a tube of this paint. I'm reaching for this brush. I'm reaching for the eraser, whatever. Before I know it, it looks like a cyclone hit my living room. I'm so in the zone of when I'm working that I'm not really aware of the mess I'm making until after it has happened. And then I'm like, "Oh my god, I gotta clean this up now." Welcome, sleepy Sasha. Yeah. Oh, yeah, she's going back to sleep now. That was the one thing about holding her up. I had to wake her up, but I wanted to show her off. I love this little kitty. Yes, she did have a tiny bit of the cream frosting. You have to be careful with table scraps with dogs and cats. The stereotype for cats is, they love milk, they love dairy and that type of thing. But the reality is you can make them quite sick. They can get diarrhea from that. They don't necessarily have all the enzymes they need, but I gave her a little bit, plus that cream cheese, you got to keep in mind, it also had powdered sugar in it and walnuts and things that aren't so good for a kitty cat. But yes, yes, Sasha got some. Joyce, I love you have a kitty. Oh, now she's awake. Joyce has a little Siamese also, about 8 months old. Yeah, we love our girls. This is just she's amazing. Whenever I have people go, "Ooh, I don't like cats. I don't like cats." I'm like, what's wrong with you? They're incredible animals. They're so sweet. They're so loving, and they're smart. I've had dogs and cats throughout my life, and I gotta say, she's the smartest pet I've ever had. It just blows me away, her intelligence. And unfortunately, that intelligent, they get bored easily. Hence why sometimes I will during the night, I will hear crashing sounds in my kitchen, go in and find she's opened up the kitchen cabinets and she's taking her paws and pulling out cans and throwing them on the floor, I guess just for the fun of it. It's because of little Sasha, I cannot put up a Christmas tree. I finally gave up. I don't know if I've told that before or not, but I have years of beautiful, beautiful ornaments that I've collected. And I even have a really nice, expensive artificial Christmas tree. It's in the pieces and it's sitting in my closet. I tried and tried and tried. I had a cat before her, never bothered the tree. She, on the other hand, just destroyed it. She would bend down the branches and climb up. And no matter how well I would tie ornaments on, she would still find a way take them off and throw them on the floor and smash them. And I'm talking really expensive ornaments. And so I just don't do it anymore. So she controls my life. And I'll tell you how smart she is. She's watched people turn doorknobs. I've caught her on a stand by my front door, and she was taking her paws. Not successfully, of course, but she was trying to turn the doorknob because she knew that's what opened the door. Too smart. Oh, Lord, do you have allergies to cats and dogs? That would be the saddest thing to me. I'm one of those people, I would be taking the injections or doing whatever. I have to have a pet, and, um, I haven't had a dog in many years. I love them dearly, but, they are a lot of work. I'm home a lot more now, so I could probably do it, but I it was after my last Cocker Spaniel passed away, broke my heart, she had cancer, but it was about 2 weeks later, and I suddenly realized I don't have to get up at 6:30 anymore. I don't have to get up at 6:30 to take her outside, stand in the rain with an umbrella over my head. I don't have to control my life where I've gotta be home within 2 or 3 hours. I can't leave her alone. Her schedule dogs are a lot of work. It's like a perpetual three-year-old child. A cat is more like having a roommate. And I think any of you have cats know just what I mean. I mean, she's affectionate, she's loving, but she's also very independent. She's perfectly fine. Like, if I have to like, go off for the day to go to work or something, or I have to be away for a day or 2. Now, I don't leave her alone for a day or 2. I will have people come in and look in on her, but she's okay. You know, the cat, you a litter box, food, water, and they sleep 20 hours a day, so they do okay. You can't do that with a dog. So, I like the freedom I have with a cat. And it just works well for my lifestyle. I'd love to have a second cat, but I don't think she would allow it. She's very, very possessive of me. Um, no, Sasha does not go outside. She's been an indoor cat literally since the day she was born. You know, I bought her. Here she is. I got her from a woman who breeds Siamese cats in San Diego, a wonderful woman named Diane Kramer. You can look her up on the internet. She has a long waiting list for Siamese cats because she breeds these cats. Oh, yeah, I love her. She breeds her Siamese. She purposely avoids inbreeding. She breeds for health, you know, for genetic strength. And she also breeds Siamese cats to be like they used to be, the old traditional Siamese. They're much, much healthier, hardier cats. She said her cats typically live to be 21 years old. And she's going to be 10 in March. She has the energy of a little kitten. Uh, yeah, I love her. Oh, she's being good. She's being a good girl right now. Sometimes she kicks and rebels when I hold her up. Maybe it's because she's sleepy. But Diane is very careful in how she breeds her cats. And anyway, Sasha was born indoors, and I got her when she was 10 weeks old. And literally, the only time she's ever been outside have been when I've had her in a carrier and I've taken her to the vet, or the time I took her home from San Diego to Los Angeles. And where I live, here in the Los Feliz part of Los Angeles, we have streets with a lot of cars, and also in the evening, coyotes come down from the mountains. And unfortunately, a lot of people lose their cats and dogs that way. And there's also raccoons and skunks and snakes. And I just figure Sasha is much, much better off to be kept indoors. She's never known any other life. And I can assure you, she's happy. She has a 6-foot cat tree, and she's got lots of toys and gets into my kitchen cabinets and stuff. She keeps herself very entertained. I need to look at my comments here. You might need to find an heir for Sasha. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I think I've still got quite a few more years for her. Uh, Joyce, oh, your Maya kitty looks like her. Yeah, I remember when you held her up the camera and we were talking. Yes, she does. And I'm so happy for you. You got the kitty. I mean, I know you were deliberating over that for a while. And that was like when I got my last Siamese cat. I had just had a cat that was lived to be almost 19, and I was heartbroken over it. And one day I was in a pet store in my area. I lived in West Hollywood. And yeah, I know you shouldn't buy from pet stores. I know about that, but there was a Siamese cat in there I just loved. And every day I'd go by there to visit him. And and I just thought, one day somebody's gonna buy him. He's not gonna be here anymore. How am I gonna feel about that? Because he was really bonding with me. And it was I mentioned at the beginning of the show, my friend Evelyn Keyes, the 1940s movie star. She adored Siamese cats. She even autographed a picture for me that her then husband, John Huston, the director, John Huston, took of her with all these Siamese kittens on her shoulders and on her arms. She must have had like 8 Siamese kittens on her. And when I told her about the Siamese cat in the pet store, she said, you must, you must get that cat. You must get that cat. Promise me you're going to get that cat." And I did. He was very expensive. I had to put him on a credit card. And he also cost me a fortune in vet bills in subsequent years. But I loved him dearly. Loved him dearly. And that even ties in with New Year's Eve, which we've got coming up soon. He died. He had cancer, at the end, and he died like 1 or 2 minutes before the stroke of midnight as it was turning from 2014 to 2015. I guess he did not want to go into the year 2015, but that was just uncanny how he died just almost at the stroke of midnight. That was really hard for me. Oh, that was not a happy New Year's. I still remember that. I had his not to be morbid, but his little body beside me. He just died. He was still warm, but his body had gone limp, and oh my God, it was hard to see him like that. And I just went on Facebook and I wrote probably one of the longest postings I've ever written in my life, just pouring out my grief over that cat and how much I loved him. And anyway, I now have Sasha, but I waited almost 6 months to get Sasha because I needed a period of mourning because that was a death that hit me very hard. Charlie, his name was Charlie, and he was um, like a human being. It was spooky, and I had other people comment the same thing, that they felt they were in the presence of a human and not a cat. So my bond with him was particularly strong, and he died New Year's Eve. And this is the part that might freak people out, but you know how you have to do what you have to do? Because the next day was New Year's Day. I had no way of cremating him. I was going to get him cremated. I had no way. Everything was closed. There was nothing available. I had no choice. I had to wrap him up in plastic and put him in my freezer. And I mean, I know that sounds horrible. People said, "What?" But you know how you have to do what you have to do sometimes? What was I going to do? I wanted to take care of him properly. I wanted to respect him and honor him. And there was no way I could do it until the morning of January 2nd. So that I did what I had to do. And that was out of great respect for him. And and I will say this because I was just having this conversation with someone else who just lost a pet recently. A lot of those pet cemeteries, those pet crematories, whatever they're called, they will play on your emotions and they'll play on your grief. Because I've seen obscene prices, like $800-900 to cremate a cat. The SPCA in Pasadena charged only $65. Only $65. And when I brought him in, oh, you should have seen me. I was crying. I was crying because it's like losing a child when you've had a pet that long. And I brought him in, and they called me several days later and said, "Well, you can pick up his ashes now." And they did it so beautifully. They put him in a beautiful little tin and a little velvet drawstring bag, even put a little white artificial flower on top for $65. So I tried to get that word out to people. Please don't let these places scam you and play on your emotions. And we know that's even true for human funeral homes. They will play on your emotions too. But just so you know, I don't know what the SPCA charges now because this was over a decade ago, but I'm sure it's still quite reasonable, and it's a beautiful service they provide. Yeah, I'm just looking at some comments here. Yeah, yeah, about yeah, they will prey upon you. And, oh, Sasha, you're awake now, aren't you? She is awake. Well, hey, Sasha, look at you. You're on the show now. See her beautiful blue eyes? Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Oh, yeah, this little girl knows how to play me. Yeah, she knows how to play me, and I go along with it. So let's see, what was I also I gotta talk about? Yeah, I hope all of you have some plans for New Year's, and it doesn't have to be anything big. I think society has us convinced that we're quote unquote supposed to go out on New Year's Eve. We're supposed to have a date on New Year's Eve, all that. And I just don't buy into it. I've always preferred staying home on New Year's Eve. I've had enough New Year's Eve parties in my lifetime. I find what I really love to do. I'm a journal writer. So I love to just sit down and reflect upon what I've accomplished this year, write about goals for the new year, things I'd like to see happen. It's a great way to contemplate, and I always have a little tradition. I think I said this last week. I'm very good with parties of one, or in this case, if you want to count Sasha, parties of two. I'll go to Trader Joe's and get some really great hors d'oeuvres. They have these wonderful frozen things that you heat them up and they're excellent. I'll get party hors d'oeuvres and things, and I'll get myself a split of champagne, toast the new year, and be by myself. And I'd much rather do that than be out there, like here in LA, the traffic is nightmarish on nights like that. Most of the places to go to are obscenely overpriced. Um, Occasionally I'll be lucky enough to get a party invitation or something, but I don't want to be out in all that. I'd rather just be home, be here in my bathrobe, my fuzzy slippers. And I've talked to others who have said the same thing. And occasionally I'll get on the phone and talk with some people. What are any New Year's plans? Well, I think I just told them. And you just basically said the same thing. I'm looking forward to just counting down at home with mama, thankful she's still in the world at this time. Yeah, that's amazing when you set a how how old your mother is right now. Didn't you say 97? 97? God bless her. Um, yeah, wow, I stopped going out on New Year's Eve many years too. Yeah. Uh, no, it's Ward 97. Oh, no, you said 96 and then you said 97. I think that's just wonderful. She's still with you. And yes, stay home with her and just really savor and appreciate your time with her. Um, Yeah, or it sounds like my city's downtown on New Year's Eve, an utter nightmare. Yeah. Oh, LA just gets crazy. One night here, it gets really, really crazy. It's Halloween night. The grown-ups are far worse than the kids. And there's parties going on everywhere and Halloween street carnivals in Hollywood and West Hollywood. And I remember one time I had this little it was a little acting gig, actually. It was in, Studio City, which, those of you who don't know Los Angeles, it's over the mountain over Laurel Canyon. It's in the valley, and I wasn't even thinking about it being Halloween night. I just wasn't even thinking about it. And I thought, "Why is the traffic so bad?" It was bumper to bumper to bumper. That thing where you move an inch, and then you move another inch, and another inch. Took me I only had, like, 4 miles to go, and I think it took oh my gosh, I think it took close to 4 hours to get home. It was madness, and I think that soured me on going out on event nights like this. It's just not worth it to me. It's not worth the aggravation, you know? So, she's down here, I'm not gonna get her up again. You've met my New Year's Eve date. So that's gonna be my New Year's, but, my one of my jobs, I told you I work for Dr. Whimsy Anderson. I do her show on Tuesdays with her, Taco Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We talk a lot of serious news topics, politics, that type of thing. Um, but in real life, I work as her assistant. She's a naturopathic doctor in real life. She even trained me to get my own license, naturopathic doctor's assistant. I will be forever grateful to her for that. But the Whimsy, what was I saying about Whimsy? Yeah, yeah, she was saying pretty much the same thing. She just likes to stay home too. She's not into this whole scene. And yeah, I we're doing the right thing. But I was also going to say I work as her assistant and I make phone calls to a lot of her clients. And some of those clients even come here to watch this show. And I, of course, know most of the people now. When we do the show on Tuesday, I can scroll through the names. Her show is much bigger than mine. This little thing I do. She gets hundreds of people. But I've had the chance to meet these people on the phone and have conversations with them. And it's just amazing how everybody's on the same page. And this week we've been talking a lot about, well, what do you hope for the new year? What are your wishes? A lot of people have apprehensions because of the election and all, but everybody seems to be in agreement. This is going to be a year where we have to unify, galvanize forces, collect our energy, and stand up for ourselves. And most people also seem to feel if it is going to be a time that's a little frightening and disparaging, we've got to get back to the basics of what make us happy, things that make us laugh. And I mean, simple things like I'll talk about I Love Lucy, Carol Burnett, or it can be your family time, or it's getting back to reading, writing, projects, but finding that whatever it is that gives us that joy and that satisfaction. I'm very lucky because I'm always working on my artwork. Sometimes I think my hobbies blend in with my profession, and I'm working on a project right now. It's a personal project. I've got some professional consignments, but I'm working on something. I don't want to tell too much about it other than it's going to involve 19th century figures of literature, arts, music, opera, basically shall we say, the media stars of the 19th century. Became quite intrigued by that. I focus a lot on this last century, the old Hollywood stars and so forth. And I started delving into, well, who were the superstars of the 1800s? Sarah Bernhardt, Charles Dickens, Hans Christian Andersen, Van Gogh, the Edwin Booth, considered one of the greatest actors who ever lived. Now, I know some of these, Puccini, these are people who bled a little into the next century, 19 teens, 20s, but most of their work was the 1800s. And I got an idea for a project involving portraits of them. And I'm not going to talk too much more about it right now until it comes into fruition. But it's just a fun thing to work on in the meantime. Right now I'm working on a portrait of Claude Monet. Hence all the jokes I've been making people about, oh, Monet for nothing and your chicks are free and Monet and all that. But I'm falling in love. Oh, yes, I knew that. Edwin Booth was John Wilkes Booth's brother. Yeah, I was actually surprised by that. I should have put two and two together, but I just didn't think it was the same Booth until I did a Wikipedia thing because I wanted to start researching these people. And I'll tell you my own naivete here. I'm going to admit something. The Booth Theater on Broadway, I thought was named after Shirley Booth because, she was a very respected Broadway actress. So I thought the Booth Theater was named after her. No, dummy Chuck. It was named after Edwin Booth. But yes, he was the brother of John Wilkes Booth, the notoriety, who was also an actor, a black sheep actor of the family. Oh dear. But I'm just loving this, and I'm finding myself falling in, just really enjoying going through old Victorian era photographs and portraits and wanting to study their works more. So I'm going to see where this project is going to take me. I was just going to say, I'm not going to talk too much about it now because This is a public forum, and I've had my work stolen before. I'm a v I'm a very trusting person by nature. Admittedly, I can be naive, and I've had to learn through the hard knocks of life, especially when you live in a place like Los Angeles with all the media people here, directors, writers, producers, actors. You gotta be really careful who you talk to. I've had I'm not gonna go into the whole thing now, but I've had 2 very big pieces stolen from me by somebody well known. And I've talked with other people who have had it happen to them. And it happens a lot, like in the music industry, like a lot of these recording stars who seem so prolific, how they just have number one hit after hit after hit. And they claim that they wrote these things. They didn't, they stole them because I know people have had their work stolen. So, not you, dear people, you wonderful people watching me here, but this anything you put on the internet goes out to the world, and so I've just learned to be very discreet about things until the projects are ready, the contract is signed, it's a done deal, that I'll keep you posted on it. And let's see, Lady Jane's husband, uh, Guilford Dudley, was the brother of Queen Elizabeth's favorite, Robert Dudley. Interesting. Um, yeah, keep things close to the vest. I've had to learn to do that, but it's something I so want to share, and I will when the time is right. I'm doing a different technique with this. I've shown you my art, I've shown you my paintings, my watercolors, my colored pencil. In fact, I'm working on a commission piece right now. Very, very excited about it. And I won't give her name for her privacy. She's one of my viewers here. And I did one for another one of my viewers, and she was pleased with it, and it makes me happy. Makes me really happy when I can do something that has meaning to them, and I can take what I have and share with it. But this is a different technique that I've revived. I haven't worked at it in a long time. Um, you probably wouldn't know this. There's something called a rapidograph pen. It's a very, very fine point. It's almost like a hypodermic needle for the ink, and I do this stippling technique where I do a lot of black line fill in with marker, but then I do lots of little dots. It's time consuming, but it's not tedious because I don't entirely know why this is. When I paint or draw, I have to focus, and it's hard for me to talk. It's hard for me to watch television, anything like that. Maybe I can listen to a podcast or I can listen to music. That's it. But I have to be really intensely focused. And no, no, not like the Nina portraits. You're probably thinking of Hirschfeld, his caricatures. No, no, no. These are much more realistic, but it's with gradations of dots. But for some reason, this is a technique where I can actually talk. I can be on the phone or something, like watch TV. I can do this at the same time. So that's a nice surprise for me. It's liberating. And also, as I said earlier in the show, I make a horrific mess when I paint and draw. I mean, it's about as bad as what I do to my kitchen when I make the carrot cake. This, all I have is my pen. Well, use those are here. Bigger spots, use a magic marker. I use a broader tip Sharpie, and then I use this for most of the detail. And it's something I can create while I'm talking. I can work on other projects. And I was thinking back to what a friend of mine said to me about ADHD, which I'm in that category. A lot of brilliant people are in there. A lot of artists have this. And so we need things to calm our overactive minds, those of us who are creative. And like when I was in high school, I used in class and I'd be taking notes. I couldn't help myself. I was always doodling in the margins, paying attention, absorbing everything, but doodling. And I had a teacher come up to me, somewhat upset, and said, "Okay, Chuck, I want you to repeat back to me what I just said." Thinking I wasn't paying attention, I repeated back everything word for word, verbatim, and proved that I had been paying attention. And he said, "Well, carrying on with what you're doing, it's working." And I later talked to someone who's an expert on ADHD, and she was telling me it's actually a good idea for calming your mind, so you can focus better. And I was taking an online class a few months ago, and it was somewhat complicated, and I was nervous about it. And she made the suggestion to me. She said, "Doodle on your note paper, doodle in the margins just like you did in high school." And she was right. I had forgotten how well that worked for me. And I find this stippling technique I do has a similar effect. It actually grounds me and calms me. And that's good for me. That is good for me. It's just I maybe because I'm too much of a dreamer, my imagination, I cannot always be grounded as I should be. So I things like this help me enormously. So anyway, that's what I'm working on right now. I am loving it, and I'm working on some writing projects also right now. I believe me, I know not to share that because it was two of my writing projects that got stolen from me. I'll leave it at that. Still get aggravated about it. Um, but let's see. Well, first of all, I've been talking almost an hour and a half here, so I think it's time to wind down. And I thank you very, very much for being here. Tentatively, I'm not doing a show tomorrow with Whimsy. 2-week break, so that'll give me a chance to catch up on some more projects. Um, but I just want you to know I really appreciate every one of you and your loyalty to me. Um, this means a lot to me. This right here was a little project that I wasn't planning on doing about a year and a half ago. It was when Whimsy talked me into doing her show, and then it just was just a natural outshoot. Why not try one of my own and do my videos and things? And in the beginning, I took it a little too seriously. I got a little too burned out on it. I got a little too focused on things like demographics and numbers. And I found what really, really helped to say the hell with all that. I don't care about numbers, demographics. Just get on here and have fun and just speak from the heart and let it be whatever it wants to be. And it's helped me a lot because I used to plan these shows and plan all these topics I was going to talk about and have it down to the last little detail. And of course, I would be filled with anxiety and I would be nervous. And no, now I just do my regular work. I don't barely even think about the show other than maybe a few ideas. Come 5 o'clock, I get on here, set up, and turn on my little light overhead and talk to you guys for an hour and a half. And I love it. I love it. I never know where this is going to go. And that's the thrill of it. It's like sometimes I feel that way when I'm doing my art. I don't know entirely what it's going to be. And I just let the guidance take over. And it's exciting. It's exciting. It's a journey. That's why sometimes when I write, I don't even know where it's going to go. That's the fun of it, where I'm like on the inside of it. So anyway, that's what this show is for right now. Maybe next year I'll get back into making some Hollywood videos because, oh God, I got so many stories to tell. I do. So thank you very much for joining me. Did anybody have a last question or comment before I sign off here? Oh, Joyce, thank you for saying you're glad I had my Monday show. And, Joyce, you are so gifted at what you do, with your astrology. And I hope you get back into it yourself. We'll talk about that sometime. We've got to get on the phone real soon. We have a lot of catching up to do. So anyway, if nobody has anything else to say or question or ask, I'm just going to wish you a beautiful new year. Very, very happy 2025. And I hope this is the year everybody starts to see their dreams come true. And I think we all deserve good things. So anyway, love you. And I'm going to say good night. And I'll be here next Monday.